Coming off of their week one adventures at Daytona, these guys at the Ghost Xfinity Series get some real racing action at Las Vegas. SMRN is here to talk about all of it right after the intro. And welcome to SMRN's The Weekly Spin Show as we continue to cover Ghost Xfinity Series action on iRacing. My name is Zach, and over here is my buddy David. Say hello to the internet.
Welcome back, everyone. Here alongside you, Zach, as you mentioned, Las Vegas Motor Speedway. Very interesting race that just took place for these drivers here in the Xfinity Series. Again, kind of a shorter field, but that doesn't mean that it wasn't without its moments, and definitely some strategy that played into things. Excited to go over all of it here.
Yeah, super pumped to be able to do this show with you. It's good to hear that you're finally home after being kidnapped by the army for quite some time. But regardless, they let you go. You're finally home. So thank you for your service for our country in the time that you've spent in the army. But I am excited to have you home so we can actually do these things a little bit more consistently when you get your setup all set up out of your car and back at your home. So this is the last week for us, hopefully, with this kind of setup. We'll cross our fingers there. But we will make do with what we got here because we have an awesome race to cover here at Las Vegas for these Xfinity guys. I'm going to bring up the results here for Las Vegas. As David, we got to see a little bit of everything. We talked about last week on the show how these drivers are going to have to adjust to green flag pit stops. We saw that play into a factor for this race. We saw tire wear play a factor into this race. And of course, at Las Vegas, you got to do some gambling. And that almost affected our race results here.
Sure did. And taking a quick look here, I'll run down through our top five. Congrats to Rob Hattenbach in the number 5 machine, bringing home that win. Number 2, we had Jeffrey Bradkey. Definitely some of that strategy that we were just talking about in the 51 machine almost playing out there towards the end of the race. Lucas Whitehead in the number 3 machine coming in third. Number 4, Corey Stahl in 66 machine. And then our 5th place finisher, Brian Tiffany in the 35 machine. Congrats to all those drivers for the top 5 finish. But let's unpack this race a little bit, and I'd really like to talk about the strategy that came there at the end of the race. Zach, we just got done watching this race short while ago. Tell me, what were your thoughts as you watched Radke right there at the end, really just trying to stretch out that final stop, make those tires work, and seeing if he could get there?
So I think what is worth mentioning before we get into there was another incident in this race that shaped the ability to call strategy by the end of this one, and actually it involved our first place finisher, Rob Hattenbach. He got in a bit of an incident with the 33 machine of Ferdinandi, and it was definitely worthy of a caution, let's put it that way. They got caught together on the front stretch. Of course, this is a developmental league, so that's going to happen from time to time. But in a 13-car field, we were pretty much set to watch this thing sort of go green. Drivers had a little bit of a problem getting off of 2 in these Xfinity rides with getting loose and bumping the wall, but that was the really big caution that set into motion some strategy for these drivers to have some flexibility at lap 51 to cut the race in half and then to approach the latter part of this race however they deem fit. Now, Rob was able to get on a different strategy than, well, the rest of the field, and Jeffrey did his darndest to pull out that Uno reverse card and go, "Aha! I got you!" As those green flag pit stops came in around lap 80 later in the race by doing something completely different than Rob. He leapfrogged him on those pit cycles, which would have never happened if Hattenbach never got into his incident around the midpoint of this race.
Absolutely. And we talk about the leapfrog kind of undercuts in some of our previous shows in the Cup Series and how drivers might be able to take advantage of that strategy. But man, it was so close to paying off here in Las Vegas for Radke, and it was exciting to watch. But as you mentioned, all set up by that mid-race kind of caution and strategies playing out, drivers taking their chances and rolling the dice here at Vegas.
Another aspect of this race, David, that I found really interesting, being on the Cup Series side, not having the experience in these Xfinity cars, and really from seeing what I watch on Saturdays with these guys, is that clean air played a big factor in this race. We saw Lucas Whitehead take control of this thing early. It looked like he really had the dominant car, but when he got back in traffic, his car just never really was the same. He struggled getting through the center of the corner, which was his strong suit early on. David, is that just a new driver trying to learn iRacing and kind of feel the dirty air? It's sort of hard to do that in a sim situation.
So definitely understanding how this league is set up. This is a fixed setup league, as you know. So the drivers don't really have as much control over their own adjustments to adjust the feeling of the car to themselves. So understanding that each and every driver out there is racing relatively the same setup. There might be some different tire strategies here or there throughout the race, but each car should feel relatively the same in traffic and in that clean air. It might have just been an instant where Lucas hadn't gotten that practice behind other vehicles. And once he started dropping back there, hey, this car feels completely different in that dirty air. Needed to find a way to adjust. And towards the end of the race, of course, they're making it happen, getting back up into that podium spot, getting that good finish result he wanted. But maybe that early run really affected how confident he was in the car because he didn't have that great feeling in that dirty air.
Yeah, and speaking of things that you have to work through and things that you need to adjust from week to week, we mentioned on the show last week that pit stops are going to be a big to do here at Vegas, especially with a field the size that it is for the Ghost Xfinity Series. You're probably going to have to work on green flag runs. The second week in a row, we had one particular team mess it up on pit road from the leading position. You want to unpack that a little bit from us?
So again, it was during a green flag stop. I believe this was close to the last stop, if not the last
Mm-hmm.
stop of the race for them. North South Motorsports. I believe the driver was the 00. I'm not gonna name drop here, just out of courtesy to the driver, but had issues getting on pit road. And Zach, we've raced these tracks. We know how difficult this can be. Getting the car slowed down. Did a great job slowing the car down on the initial approach to pit road, but as he got closer and closer to that line, I think he realized he was a little bit higher in speed than he wanted to be. Maybe tapped those brakes just a little too hard, lost the rear end. But overall, great race, great strategy, great time to come to the pits. I felt like he was really making the call he needed to. Just a little bit of issues getting slowed down there right at the end for that entry to pit road.
So I'm gonna switch this up here. Ooh, I switched this up not the most gracefully, but I switched the screen here. But we're moving on, right? We're moving on from Las Vegas, but the track itself, the layout's not too different moving from Vegas to Michigan versus Daytona to Vegas. So what advice do you have for these drivers to work on aspects like dirty air, to work on aspects like getting onto pit road as we now start to get more into the normal of the Xfinity Series season?
Definitely for these drivers, we're getting into the part of the schedule where the tracks become more consistent. We're running D-shaped ovals, mile and a half, 2 miles, somewhere in those lengths, usually maybe a short track here or there. but you're going to start seeing a more consistent style of oval racing. And each track, of course, is going to handle a little differently, but now, especially even just 2 races in, you raced at a track that was very aero dependent. You've now raced at Las Vegas, where you can get a little bit out of that draft and still be okay. And we're heading on here to Michigan, and it's another track kind of like Vegas, where you can get a little bit out of that draft and find some grooves to work yourself in and around on and still be okay with a 2-mile D-shaped oval here at Michigan, 18-degree banking. These drivers are going to feel very much like they did at Vegas. The front stretch being around 12 degrees, the back stretch being at 5. There's just that opportunity there for these drivers to really settle in and find that space.
Yeah, and it is really a reality check for these guys, right? If you are good at Las Vegas, you're going to be good at the predominantly majority part of this schedule, right? Last week we saw Rob Hattenbach finish second last week at Daytona. We didn't really know if that was a fluke or not, right? Where it's Daytona. Anybody can finish close to the front. But he backs that up with a first place finish here at Vegas. Can that number 5 machine be the favorite? I think so. I think he cemented his spot as being one of the favorites of the year when he passed for the lead with 6 laps to go in this thing. He was 4 seconds back trying to hunt down. Now, granted, he was on better tires, he was on better equipment, but at the end of the day, you still have to execute. So that 15 lap sprint to the end, he just chipped away, did what he needed to do, and with 6 laps left, I really feel that Rob has done everything he can early on in the year to say, you know what, I'm the favorite here in the Ghost Xfinity Series.
He has certainly checked the blocks as a driver who has now shown 2 weeks in a row, I am consistent. I want to be up in that top 5. I'm fast. I'm going to put my name out here and cement myself in this league as somebody that can go and get it done.
Yeah, absolutely. So, David, as we transition from Vegas to Michigan, do you have any thoughts looking forward into week 3 of Ghost Xfinity action?
For week 3, as I said, Michigan's that 2-mile D-shaped oval, and it should feel very, very similar for these drivers as it did to Las Vegas getting these things done. Looking forward to see if these drivers make any adjustments. Maybe Michigan being a slightly longer track variant than Las Vegas. Maybe these drivers work a little bit together to get some draft going down the front D-shaped part of the oval, and then especially down that backstretch to pick up just a little bit more speed, maybe make some passes in those grooves on the turns.
Well, we have come to expect the unexpected here early on in the inaugural season of the Ghost Xfinity Series. But one thing you can hang your hat on, at least early on, is that Rob Hattenbach, that Texan iRacer, is going to make his way to the front, dodge and weave, and even when adversity strikes, he's going to keep digging. And that's the kind of attribute that I feel is going to promote these guys right from the Xfinity Series to the Cup Series from year to year. I know it's early, but that never give up attitude is something you need to display here. If adversity comes your way, you can't just park the car. You got to go out, you got to keep digging, and Rob did that this week.
He sure did, earning those points and cementing that spot. Hope to see a lot more from him moving on, and hope to talk about it all here with you, Zach. So looking forward to it next week and seeing what these drivers can put out.
Awesome. Cannot wait to talk to you here next week about Ghost Xfinity Series action from Michigan. And until we meet again, just remember, guys, to keep on racing.